In any great comic or manga series, we're bound to find situations filled with drama, sadness, and even death. Things get pretty dark at some point, and the stakes are raised to a point where they haven't been raised to yet. In My Hero Academia, during the first few arcs, we follow the drama in Deku's life after All Might passes him one for all. Early during the series' publication, there were theories from people thinking, well, we know there's a quirk named One for All, so what if there's a quirk called All for One? All for one, one for all. This phrase is best known as the catchphrase for the Three Musketeers. The phrase in its entirety means that everyone in the group will support each individual member while also supporting the group as a whole. In our story, if One for All is the quirk that belongs to our hero, then obviously All for One has to be the quirk that belongs to our greatest villain, and that's exactly what All for One is. He's the biggest villain not only in terms of the plot or anything, but even within the universe of My Hero Academia. He's the biggest threat to peace and compassion that we're aware of, and by the nature of how the world is set up, he's pretty much the only person who could be as threatening to peace as he is because of his quirk. All for One isn't just a quirk though, it's an identity. We don't actually know much about All for One's true identity, but in this video we're going to try to cover all the things that you need to know about that character and what he can likely do after the intro.
Hit it!
We're told that some time ago, quirks started to appear in the world of My Hero Academia. When this happened, all sorts of people started to pop up, each with different morals and intentions. Some wanted to just live in peace, while others wanted to use their newfound powers in order to keep those who wanted to live in peace safe. These people would eventually go on to create an entire society around just doing that, keeping people safe. They created schools to teach young quirk users to become heroes, and they even ingrained it into society that heroes were people to be loved and celebrated. They were amazing. I mean, they could do amazing things, and most importantly, they could keep everyone safe. Of course though, when there are heroes, there are also villains who rise up to challenge them. Villains were people who decided to use their quirks for evil or just for the wrong purposes. Some wanted to rob, steal, and even worse, but others might have just wanted to live life in a way that might not be acceptable but isn't downright wrong. These people who felt oppressed by the newfound society of heroes spread their ideals further and further, and due to that, we have the epidemic of villains that can be found today. As the villains took on the heroes and vice versa, there must have been powerful quirk users that tried to come up and take over towns in different areas. These villains were usually defeated and locked away, however, it would make sense that over time, a villain would arrive that would give the heroes a hard time. This villain had the ability to take quirks and either keep them for himself to use or pass them on to others. He was pure evil, ruthless, and eventually he gained enough influence and power that he was able to secretly rule over Japan. The man did this by organizing people and villains, making them his pawns, and then moving his pawns across the board in the key positions that he'd have to hold in order to keep his stranglehold on Japan in place. Eventually, All for One's younger brother tried to stand up to his evil. All for One forced a quirk onto his brother, and eventually, this quirk would mutate and become One for All. One for All would then be passed on through the generations, eventually leading to All Might's master. All Might's master passes it on to All Might, and with all that power, All Might finally brings down All for One. He believes that All for One is dead. However, All for One survives, and at the start of our story, he's behind the shadowy league of villains. What does this tell us about All for One? Well, it tells us that he's an incredibly evil individual who won't stop doing what he does even if he's brought to the point of near death. All for One has to heal himself over the course of years just to get back to the point where he can take on All Might again. During this time, I'm sure he's kept a certain amount of influence, and with that, he helps the League of Villains from the background. All for One sees Shigaraki as a student and successor, much like how All Might sees Deku. When we see All for One, his face is covered in scars. These scars are the ones that he got from his fight with All Might years ago, and it just shows you how bloody that fight must have been. Even after years of healing and all sorts of quirk treatments, All for One still hasn't been able to fully undo the damage that All Might did to him. All for One has no eyes and he has no nose, so two of his senses are just absolutely gone, meaning when he does make his appearance, he's already doing so handicapped, and that's just how powerful he is. The story gives us a weakened All for One who's been scrambling to gather powers, but that's not by accident. Narratively, he's supposed to be the opposite of All Might in tons of ways, but he's also supposed to parallel him in other ways also. Both All Might and All for One are older characters who have intense injuries caused from their battles with one another long ago. These two both have students that they want to carry on their legacies with, and both of these characters are symbols. Just like how All Might is the symbol of peace, All for One is the symbol of evil. We know that with his ability he can steal quirks from others, and he can also force quirks onto others. It seems like he probably has to make physical contact with the person who he gives or takes the quirk from, which makes him incredibly dangerous in a close range fight. If you think that you can hold him off at a distance though, you're probably wrong too, because All For One isn't an idiot. He takes full advantage of his quirk stealing ability, and he's sure to have different moves and techniques for when you're at any range. He's really the jack of all trades in the My Hero Academia universe, and it's a shame that he's evil because his quirk would probably be really useful to the society. Imagine having someone who could reassign quirks. I mean, I'd imagine that there are people with quirks that aren't so compatible with their bodies, or even people who have quirks that might actually hurt them in some sort of way. All For One would be able to completely get rid of these problems. Even if you assume that these things aren't a big deal, it'd still be useful to have a person who can say, hey, we need something done and it's gonna take this quirk and that quirk to get it done, so here you go. You're now equipped to deal with this situation. At the end of the day, All Might is a vicious evil villain in the world of My Hero Academia. He's the opposite of All Might, but he's also quite similar to All Might. We aren't clear about some of his motivations at this point, and as the story peels back more and more layers about his character, what he can do, and who he truly is, we'll talk about them more on this channel and other videos just like this. What do you think about All For One? Do you love him? Do you hate him? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm super interested in actually hearing if you guys think he'll end up dying after he gives his quirk to Shigaraki, if that even is what's gonna happen. So let me know what you think about that, and if you enjoyed the video or it hyped you up for these next few episodes, smash that like button and hit the subscribe button to see all my future videos. You can join our awesome League of Notifications too by clicking the bell icon so that you get a little notification whenever I post videos. This is Pineapple. Peace.